In the year 2175, Earth was on the brink of destruction. An advanced alien force known as the Zephyrians descended from the stars, bringing with them technology that far outpaced anything humanity had ever conceived. Their ships darkened the sky, casting ominous shadows over cities that once thrived with life. Panic swept through the planet as governments fell, and chaos reigned. The global population dwindled under the relentless assault, and hope seemed like a distant memory. But in the darkest corners of humanity's desperation, a flicker of possibility began to emerge. Dr. Emily Carter, a leading biogeneticist, had devoted her life to studying the mysteries of life and death. In her small, makeshift lab tucked away in the ruins of what was once a bustling university, she pored over ancient texts and scrolls unearthed from forgotten crypts. Among the fragile pages, she found something astonishing, a method to control and communicate with the dead. This revelation ignited a spark of interest, blending science with the supernatural in a way no one had dared to explore before. The first tests were fraught with uncertainty. Emily gathered a team of scientists, each grappling with their own fears and hopes. The concept of resurrecting the dead and bending them to human will was met with both fascination and trepidation. As they prepared to bring their first subject back to a semblance of life, the weight of the decision loomed heavy over their shoulders. Could they really wield such power? Was this the solution to humanity's plight, or a reckless gamble that would lead to their undoing? After days of meticulous preparation, they finally succeeded. A single corpse was reanimated under the flickering lights of their lab. To their astonishment, the subject exhibited signs of life, albeit in a grotesque form. The reanimated being, now a zombie, moved with jerky motions, a mere shadow of its former self. But it was a breakthrough. They could communicate with it, issue commands, and most importantly, control its actions. The scientists erupted in cheers, a mix of relief and exhilaration flooding the room. Yet, as the initial thrill of success faded, ethical questions began to surface. Emily found herself at the center of a heated debate. Some in the team argued passionately for the potential to create a powerful army from the undead. Others expressed deep moral concerns about the implications of their actions. "We're playing God," one of her colleagues insisted, his voice shaking with conviction. "These are not our toys. They are people who once lived, who had families, dreams, and hopes. We have no right to manipulate their souls." But in the face of extinction, the government intervened, declaring the project a national priority. The military was desperate for any advantage against the Zephyrians. They framed the control of zombies as humanity's last hope. As the government officials spoke passionately about survival and victory, Emily felt a chill run down her spine. The lines between hope and horror were blurring, and she could sense the gravity of what they were embarking upon. As the project advanced, the scientists refined their methods, enhancing their ability to control larger groups of zombies. They experimented with different techniques, discovering ways to amplify their control through sound frequencies and visual cues. Soon, Emily's lab became a factory of sorts, producing legions of the undead. With each successful test, her sense of dread grew. They were building an army, but at what cost? The more they succeeded, the less human they felt. Word of their success spread like wildfire, igniting a mix of hope and fear across the globe. Governments scrambled to harness this new power, and the notion of a zombie army became a rallying cry for humanity's survival. "We will not go quietly into the night" became a popular slogan, embodying the desperate spirit of the times. But beneath the surface, a troubling realization began to take root. The more the world celebrated their newfound strength, the more the ethical implications began to fester. Still, there was no turning back. The first deployment was imminent. Emily stood before the assembled military leaders, her heart pounding in her chest. She could see the excitement in their eyes as they envisioned the power of the undead at their command. The soldiers would be accompanied by an army of zombies, resurrected and ready to fight. It was a concept so bizarre yet intoxicating that she felt momentarily swept up in their enthusiasm. But as she glanced at the horde of zombies behind her, a wave of unease washed over her. These were not mere weapons. They were remnants of lives once lived, now reduced to tools of war. She imagined the families who mourned their losses, unaware that their loved ones were being wielded as instruments of humanity's survival. The weight of that realization bore down on her, but the urgency of the situation pushed her fears aside. The day of their first battle arrived, and the air was thick with tension. The aliens had regrouped for a decisive strike, and Earth was their target. Emily watched as the military prepared to deploy her creations, each soldier laden with weapons and determination. The sight was surreal, a blend of the living and the undead, standing shoulder to shoulder in defense of their home. As the horde of zombies shuffled forward, their lifeless eyes staring into the abyss, Emily felt a knot tighten in her stomach. This was it. This was humanity's gamble, their desperate play for survival. But in the back of her mind, she couldn't shake the growing fear that they were crossing a line that should never have been approached. The battle raged on, and humanity's forces clashed against the Zephyrians. The zombie army proved surprisingly effective, overwhelming the alien ranks with sheer numbers and unrelenting ferocity. Emily watched in awe and horror as her creation was unleashed upon the enemy, a tide of the undead crashing against the technologically superior invaders. In that moment, humanity seemed to reclaim some of its lost hope. But as the smoke cleared and victory echoed through the battlefield, a chilling realization began to dawn. The very act of wielding such power had changed humanity irrevocably. They had become the architects of their own nightmare, blurring the lines between savior and monster. The world celebrated their victory, but beneath the surface, the seeds of fear and doubt were sown, hinting at the darkness that lay ahead. In a universe now aware of humanity's unnatural mastery over death, the question lingered. Had they truly saved themselves, or had they unleashed a greater terror upon the galaxy? As the dust settled from the battlefield, the world held its breath. Humanity had emerged victorious against the Zephyrians, a feat once deemed impossible. The horde of zombies, once mere subjects of fear and ethical debates, had become the backbone of Earth's defense strategy. The victory celebration echoed across the globe, but deep within the shadows, a more complex reality began to unfold. Dr. Emily Carter stood in the makeshift command center, surrounded by military personnel and scientists, all buzzing with excitement. "We did it," one soldier exclaimed, his face alight with exhilaration. "The zombies really worked. We can win this war." Emily forced a smile, but her heart was heavy. Each cheer resonated with a stark reminder of what they had unleashed, a power over life and death that no one could fully comprehend. In the days following their initial success, the army set about the task of expanding their ranks. More bodies were gathered from the fallen, and the scientific team worked tirelessly to refine their techniques. Each reanimated soldier brought with it memories of a life once lived, and each day blurred the lines between victory and monstrosity. The zombies were trained like soldiers, given commands, and conditioned to respond to human orders. As their numbers grew, so did the unease in Emily's heart. The government organized mass demonstrations to display the power of the zombie army. Crowds gathered, a mixture of awe and terror written across their faces, as they watched the undead perform drills under the guidance of their human commanders. The spectacle was mesmerizing, a chilling dance of death and life, marching in perfect unison. Media outlets sensationalized these events, dubbing the zombies the saviors of humanity. But Emily couldn't shake the nagging feeling that they were celebrating something unnatural. Amidst this chaos, Emily's team began to notice anomalies. Some zombies exhibited erratic behavior, deviating from their commands or showing signs of individuality. During one training session, a particularly strong-willed zombie resisted orders, its dead eyes flickering with what seemed like a spark of awareness. The military officers observed, intrigued yet disturbed, debating whether this behavior was a fluke or an indication of something far more troubling. One day, while overseeing a training exercise, Emily witnessed a moment that sent chills down her spine. A group of soldiers stood at attention, ready to command their undead counterparts. The lead soldier raised his hand, issuing a command for a simple drill. To her horror, one zombie turned its head slightly, as if sensing the fear radiating from the living soldiers. The tension in the air was palpable. Emily's heart raced as she realized they might not have complete control over the very creations they thought they had mastered. Despite these concerns, the military pushed forward, eager to utilize the zombie army in a counteroffensive against the Zephyrians. The upcoming mission was crucial, and morale was high. The soldiers felt empowered by the presence of their undead allies, believing they could reclaim territories lost to the alien invaders. Emily was torn, her mind raced with doubts, but the urgency of the situation left her little room for dissent. As the day of the operation approached, Emily found herself immersed in preparations. She worked late into the night, poring over data and analyzing the behavior of the zombies. Her colleagues urged her to focus on the mission ahead, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they were tampering with forces beyond their comprehension. The ethical implications gnawed at her. Each decision they made seemed to carry the weight of their very humanity. The operation commenced at dawn, Troops gathered, a cacophony of shouts and clattering armor filling the air. The undead were lined up, their lifeless forms a stark contrast to the eager soldiers ready to fight. Emily stood on the sidelines, her heart heavy with dread. As the commanding officer signaled for the advance, the zombie army shuffled forward, a mass of death eager to engage. The initial clash with the Zephyrians unfolded like a scene from a nightmare. The zombies surged forward, and for a moment it seemed as though humanity's gambit was paying off. The alien forces, unprepared for the sheer numbers of the undead, faltered. The humans shouted with glee as they witnessed the tide of battle shift in their favor, but Emily's eyes were fixed on the chaos. As the battle raged, she noticed that some zombies began to turn on their human counterparts, driven by a strange instinct to protect themselves from injury. In the midst of the frenzy, a small group of aliens adapted quickly, launching a counter-offensive that targeted the zombies specifically. They recognized the threat and began to deploy specialized weapons designed to incapacitate the undead. As blasts of energy tore through the ranks of the zombies, a panic surged through the battlefield. The humans, caught off guard, struggled to maintain control. Emily's heart raced as she realized their weapon of choice was becoming a liability. Desperation clawed at the soldiers as they tried to regroup. Emily shouted orders to reinforce the remaining zombies, but the chaos made it difficult to establish communication. She watched in horror as the once disciplined army unraveled, the line between ally and enemy blurring in a flurry of violence. The sound of moans and gunfire filled the air, creating a symphony of destruction that seemed to drown out any hope of victory. Amidst the chaos, Emily caught a glimpse of the lead soldier, a fierce warrior who had embraced the zombie army as their salvation. He fought valiantly, rallying the troops around him, but as he pressed forward, a horde of zombies, disoriented and confused, surged in his direction. In a moment that felt frozen in time, he raised his weapon, ready to fire at the nearest alien. But the zombies, perceiving him as a threat, turned and lunged, their teeth bared and arms outstretched. The scene unfolded in agonizing slow motion. Emily screamed, her voice lost amidst the tumult. The soldier was overwhelmed, the very creations meant to protect him now posing the greatest danger. The horror of the situation struck her like a physical blow. What had they done? In their pursuit of survival, they had sown the seeds of chaos. With casualties mounting on both sides, the human forces were forced to retreat, regrouping amidst the rubble of the battlefield. As they pulled back, Emily felt a heavy weight of guilt settle on her shoulders. They had harnessed a power beyond their control, and in doing so, they had become a part of the very monstrosity they sought to combat. In the aftermath of the operation, the world turned its eyes toward the casualties. News broadcasts filled with images of the brave soldiers who fought valiantly, and the fallen zombies who had once been humans. The media spun narratives of heroism and horror, painting the zombies as both saviors and symbols of humanity's darkest impulses. Public opinion began to shift, with protests erupting against the continued use of the undead. Emily knew that the stakes were higher than ever. The government was under pressure, and the military insisted that the zombie army was still their best chance against the Zephyrians. As Emily stood in the aftermath of chaos, she realized that they were caught in a vicious cycle, fighting for survival while simultaneously risking their very humanity. As alliances began to fracture and fears grew, the lines between hero and monster blurred more than ever. The world outside was changing, and Emily felt the weight of the choices they had made bearing down on her. In her heart, she knew that humanity stood at a precipice, one wrong step away from descending into darkness. The zombie army had become both a weapon and a curse, a reflection of the lengths to which humanity would go to survive. As she prepared for the next battle, Emily braced herself for the moral quandaries that lay ahead, knowing that nothing could prepare her for the consequences of wielding such power. In the aftermath of the chaotic battle, Earth's momentary triumph was overshadowed by the emergence of a far greater threat. News of humanity's disturbing mastery over the undead spread throughout the galaxy like wildfire, igniting outrage among alien civilizations. The Zephyrians, who had initially regarded humans as a minor nuisance, now viewed them as a genuine menace, capable of wielding death itself as a weapon. As the galaxy watched, fear transformed into fury, and alliances were forged in the face of this unprecedented horror. The Galactic Council convened in a rare emergency session, representatives from various alien races gathering to discuss the implications of humanity's actions. The grand chamber, filled with beings of various shapes and sizes, buzzed with heated debates. The dominant voice among them belonged to Elder Vecra, a towering figure from the ancient race of Zoltrax, who exuded authority with every word. "We cannot allow this abomination to continue," Vecra declared, his voice resonating through the chamber. "Humanity's manipulation of death defies all natural laws. They have become the very thing we fear, a species capable of controlling life and death with impunity." As the debates raged, a holographic projection displayed footage from Earth. Scenes of the undead marching alongside soldiers flickered across the room, illustrating the gruesome reality of the situation. Representatives exchanged nervous glances, some visibly disturbed by the images that seemed to mock the sanctity of life itself. "Fear drives us to this moment," said Sorith, a diplomat from the peaceful race of Illyrians. "If we allow humanity to continue this path, we risk plunging the entire universe into chaos. What's to stop them from unleashing their undead upon us?" The sentiment echoed throughout the assembly, and soon, a resolution was passed. The Council unanimously declared a galactic war on Earth, vowing to eradicate this newfound threat. The call to arms sent shockwaves through the galaxy, and representatives began rallying their respective forces, preparing for a confrontation that would determine the fate of not just humanity, but the very fabric of existence itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, the atmosphere was tense and uncertain. Dr. Emily Carter, still grappling with the moral implications of her work, found herself at the center of a government meeting designed to address the escalating tensions. Military leaders and politicians crowded around a holographic display, showcasing the vast alien fleets mobilizing for war. The room buzzed with fear and urgency, each participant acutely aware of the gravity of the situation. "We need to prepare for their attack," said General Rourke, a stoic figure with a reputation for unwavering resolve. "We've already faced them once. Now we need to harness the full potential of our undead army. They're our only chance." Emily felt a knot tighten in her stomach. The general saw the zombies as mere soldiers, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they were treating something far more complex as tools of war. "We can't rely solely on the zombies," she interjected, her voice steady but laced with concern. "We need to understand the repercussions of our actions. If we continue down this path, we risk losing our humanity." General Rourke turned to her, a mixture of frustration and determination etched across his face. "What choice do we have, Emily? We can't afford to back down. If we don't fight, we'll be wiped out. They see us as monsters, and we must prove them wrong." With each passing day, tensions escalated. Earth prepared for war, and the government unleashed propaganda campaigns to rally public support. The media painted a picture of unity against a common foe, while Emily watched in despair as the narrative twisted into something she barely recognized. The zombies were heralded as heroes, and the lines between right and wrong blurred further in the face of impending doom. As the alien forces approached Earth, the initial skirmishes began. Space battles erupted in the dark void, with Earth's forces desperately trying to defend their home. But the overwhelming power of the Galactic Coalition quickly became apparent. Advanced technologies, combined with centuries of combat experience, made the alien fleets a formidable opponent. Emily witnessed firsthand the devastation as ships fell one by one, the skies ablaze with fire and destruction. In a crucial battle just outside Earth's orbit, the combined forces of the Galactic Council launched an all-out assault. The zombies, once a symbol of hope, became the centerpiece of the human strategy, but they were not without their flaws. As the first wave of alien ships descended, Emily felt a surge of anxiety. The zombies were unpredictable, and while they charged into battle with relentless fervor, their effectiveness was compromised by the chaos that unfolded. The initial clash was a cacophony of chaos. Lasers fired, explosions rocked the ships, and the undead surged forward in droves. But the alien forces quickly adapted. With strategic precision, they began targeting the zombies first, using advanced technology designed to incapacitate their reanimated forms. Emily watched in horror as their once mighty army began to falter under the pressure. During one critical moment, a particularly fierce battle broke out near the planet's atmosphere. The zombie army advanced, driven by an insatiable hunger to obey their commands. But as they collided with the alien forces, it became evident that their lack of coordination and understanding of the battlefield was leading to disastrous consequences. Zombies surged into the path of their own ships, creating confusion and chaos among the living soldiers. In the command center, panic ensued as communication broke down. "Get them under control," shouted General Rourke, his voice strained with urgency. But Emily knew the truth. There was only so much control they could exert over the undead. As the battle raged on, something remarkable occurred. Amidst the chaos, a small group of aliens began to hesitate. They witnessed the zombies fighting fiercely, their lifeless forms pushing forward against insurmountable odds. For the first time, some in the Galactic Coalition began to question their stance. They saw the zombies not as mindless monsters, but as tragic victims of humanity's desperate struggle for survival. One alien commander, Zilkar of the Voron species, found himself grappling with this newfound perspective. As he witnessed a group of zombies courageously defend a wounded soldier, he couldn't help but feel a twinge of empathy. "What have we done?" he murmured, reflecting on the unfolding violence. His heart ached as he recognized the humanity struggling beneath the surface of their grotesque forms. Back on Earth, the tides of war shifted dramatically. As news of the chaos spread across the galaxy, dissent began to grow among alien ranks. Not all alien civilizations were unified in their response to humanity's actions. Some saw the potential for understanding, believing that perhaps they could find common ground with the species they once viewed as monsters. The Galactic Council, sensing this fracture, intensified their efforts to rally support for an all-out assault on Earth. They dispatched envoys to secure alliances and fortify their resolve, but whispers of dissent began to circulate among their ranks. Could they truly eradicate humanity without considering the consequences? On Earth, Emily found herself at a crossroads. She knew that if humanity continued down this path, they would forever be seen as the true monsters of the universe. She gathered a small group of scientists and military strategists, urging them to reconsider their approach. "We need to reach out," she implored, her voice filled with urgency. "If we can communicate with the aliens, maybe we can find a way to coexist, to show them that we're not just mindless creatures. We have a right to live, just like they do." Some in the room nodded, intrigued by the idea, while others scoffed at the notion. "They'll never listen," one military officer declared. "They see us as abominations, and rightly so. We need to prepare for the next battle, not waste time trying to reason with our enemies." But Emily pressed on, fueled by the knowledge that there was still a glimmer of hope. She proposed sending an envoy, a small team willing to venture into the heart of enemy territory to broker a truce. "We can't fight forever," she insisted. "If we want to survive, we must show them that we are more than our mistakes." As she rallied support for her audacious plan, the tides of war continued to swell. The galaxy was in turmoil, and the stage was set for a confrontation that would challenge the very definition of humanity. Would they be able to break free from the cycle of violence, or were they destined to become the very monsters they sought to defeat? The answers loomed just beyond the horizon, waiting to be discovered. As the war raged on, the reality of humanity's situation grew increasingly dire. Earth's forces, bolstered by the relentless hordes of zombies, faced mounting casualties and dwindling morale. The initial thrill of using the undead in battle had faded, replaced by a haunting realization. The cost of controlling death was far greater than anyone had anticipated. Each battle revealed the fragility of their situation, exposing the dark underbelly of their newfound power. Dr. Emily Carter found herself in a constant state of turmoil. The tension between survival and morality weighed heavily on her conscience. Each day, she witnessed the soldiers becoming more desensitized to the horrors of war. They no longer viewed the zombies as former humans. They were merely weapons, tools to be wielded against a formidable enemy. This shift in perception gnawed at her, forcing her to confront the ethical implications of their actions. In the command center, Emily reviewed footage from the latest battles. The sight of zombies charging into the fray, limbs outstretched, sent a shiver down her spine. Once they had been reanimated to fight for humanity's survival. Now, they had become symbols of desperation and horror. The toll of war was evident in the haunted eyes of the soldiers who commanded them, their expressions a blend of fear and confusion. The government, desperate for a decisive victory, pushed the military to employ the zombies more aggressively. Plans for a major offensive were underway, aimed at driving back the Zephyrians and reclaiming lost territory. General Rourke, driven by a fierce determination to win, insisted on expanding their use of the undead army, seeing them as humanity's last hope. "Every soldier lost is a step closer to our extinction," he argued, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "We need every advantage we can get. We can't afford to hesitate." Emily felt a knot tighten in her stomach. "But at what cost?" she asked, desperation creeping into her tone. "We're losing our humanity with every battle. We need to rethink our strategy. If we keep treating the zombies as expendable, we risk becoming the very monsters we fear." Her words fell on deaf ears. The military leaders were caught up in the fervor of war, Blinded by the desire for victory, the decision was made to launch the offensive, and the army prepared for what would be one of the most critical battles yet. As dawn broke on the day of the operation, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The zombie army stood ready, a grotesque amalgamation of flesh and decay. The living soldiers lined up alongside them, but Emily could see the cracks beginning to form. The camaraderie that had once existed was fading, replaced by an unsettling unease. During the initial phases of the battle, things unfolded much like before. The zombies charged forward, drawn by an instinct to obey their commands, but something was different this time. As they clashed with the Zephyrians, the living soldiers began to hesitate. The zombies, now fully exposed to the chaos of combat, became erratic and unpredictable. They wandered off from their designated formations, breaking ranks and attacking indiscriminately. In the thick of battle, Emily watched in horror as a group of zombies surrounded a wounded soldier, their instinctual desire for flesh overpowering any remaining sense of loyalty. The scene played out in agonizing slow motion as the soldier struggled to fight them off. The very beings they had sought to control were now turning against their creators. "Stop them!" Emily screamed, her voice lost in the cacophony of battle. "They're out of control." General Rourke, overwhelmed by the chaos, shouted orders to regain control of the situation, but it was too late. Panic spread through the ranks as the zombies began to wreak havoc on their own. Soldiers turned their weapons against the undead, creating a deadly crossfire that escalated the violence. In that moment, the horror of their choices became all too clear. In the midst of the chaos, Zilkar, the Voran commander, watched from a distance, grappling with the turmoil within his own ranks. He had been among the first to recognize the humanity within the zombies, but now, witnessing the slaughter, he struggled to reconcile his beliefs. The sight of the once mindless soldiers fighting for survival, now turned against the very beings they were supposed to protect, ignited a fire of dissent in his heart. As the battle descended into chaos, Zilkar made a fateful decision. He rallied a small group of allies who had begun to question the war's moral implications. "We cannot continue down this path," he implored, his voice resonating with urgency. "What we are witnessing is a tragedy. We must seek a way to communicate, to understand. We cannot allow ourselves to become like them." His words resonated with some, and they began to formulate a plan. Perhaps there was still a way to prevent the annihilation of humanity, a chance to bridge the chasm that had formed between their species. Zilkar knew the risks, but he understood that if they didn't act now, they might lose everything. Back on Earth, the situation was spiraling out of control. The fallout from the battle left both sides battered and bruised. The human forces regrouped, but the losses were staggering. The price of victory had been far too high, and Emily felt the weight of her choices pressing down on her. In the aftermath of the chaos, she convened a meeting with her team, desperate to find a way to reverse the damage. "We need to reach out to them," she urged. "If we can show the aliens that we're more than our mistakes, perhaps we can broker a truce. The longer we wait, the more lives will be lost." But the skepticism among her peers was palpable. "They see us as monsters," one scientist countered. "Why would they listen to us now?" "Because we're fighting for our survival," Emily replied, her voice steady. "If we don't act soon, we risk losing everything we hold dear. We need to demonstrate that we're not just mindless creatures. We have the capacity for change." With little time to spare, Emily began formulating a plan to send an envoy to the alien coalition, hoping to convince them to consider peace. She reached out to Zilkar through intercepted communications, a bold move that could either bridge the gap or further complicate matters. The decision to negotiate was fraught with peril. Emily knew that she was walking a tightrope between survival and annihilation. The more humanity leaned on their undead army, the more they risked becoming the monsters they sought to combat. As the envoy prepared for its mission, the stakes became clear. The world held its breath, caught between the horror of the past and the hope for a better future. Emily understood that nothing would come easily. The consequences of their actions had created deep wounds on both sides. The tension in the air was palpable as the envoy set off, a small team of humans and their alien allies embarking on a mission to seek peace. Emily could only hope that despite the darkness that surrounded them, the seeds of understanding could take root and blossom into something beautiful. The cost of control had been great, but perhaps, just perhaps, there was still a chance for redemption. As the envoy made its way through the vastness of space, the universe held its breath, waiting to see if humanity could reclaim its humanity, or if they would descend further into the abyss. The journey ahead would not only determine the fate of Earth, but also shape the very essence of what it meant to be human in a galaxy fraught with peril. As the envoy ventured into the depths of space, a sense of foreboding loomed over them. Dr. Emily Carter stood among the small group of diplomats and soldiers aboard the ship, her heart racing with anxiety. This was humanity's last chance, a fragile opportunity to reach out to the alien coalition that sought their destruction. With each passing moment, she felt the weight of her species' choices pressing down on her, the ghosts of the fallen zombies and soldiers haunting her thoughts. The ship hummed softly as it traveled through the void, surrounded by stars that felt distant and indifferent. Emily gazed out the viewport, wondering what awaited them on the other side of this monumental decision. Zilkar had agreed to meet them, his group of allies eager to hear their plea for peace. But trust, once shattered, was a difficult thing to rebuild. "Are you ready for this?" Lieutenant Maria Ortiz asked, breaking the tense silence. Maria had been a fierce advocate for humanity's continued use of the undead, but even she recognized the need for change. Emily nodded, her determination stealing her resolve. "We have to try. If we don't, we'll lose everything we fought for." As the ship approached the designated meeting point, a neutral zone in the expanse of space, the atmosphere shifted. Tension crackled like electricity in the air, each member of the envoy acutely aware of the stakes involved. The moment arrived, and the alien fleet emerged from the shadows, a diverse array of ships, some sleek and elegant, others bulky and formidable. Zilkar's ship, a shimmering vessel adorned with symbols of peace, hailed them. "Welcome, humans," his voice echoed through the comm system, calm yet resolute. "I am glad you have come. We have much to discuss." The envoy docked, and Emily's heart raced as they disembarked. The meeting room was circular, filled with representatives from various races, each one a testament to the rich tapestry of life in the galaxy. Zilkar stood at the center, flanked by his allies. Emily took a deep breath, steeling herself for the conversations to come. As they exchanged greetings, Emily felt the weight of scrutiny upon her. The alien leaders regarded her with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism, their eyes reflecting centuries of wisdom and experience. Zilkar gestured for silence and began, "We have witnessed the horrors of your recent battles. Your mastery over the undead is a profound violation of the natural order. Yet, I sense a desire for understanding within you." With her heart pounding, Emily stepped forward. "We recognize the consequences of our actions. In our desperation, we manipulated death and created a weapon that has caused untold suffering. But we are more than our mistakes. We seek to make amends, to show you that humanity has the capacity for change." The room filled with murmurs, and Emily took a moment to gauge their reactions. Some appeared intrigued, while others seemed skeptical. A representative from the Illyrians spoke up, their voice melodic yet firm. "Your kind has shown both great potential and great folly. How can we trust that you won't repeat these actions?" Emily felt the heat of their scrutiny. "We must earn your trust, not demand it," she replied, her voice steady. "We propose a cessation of hostilities, a chance for dialogue. We wish to collaborate, to understand the wisdom of your civilizations. Together, we could build a future where our species coexist without fear." Zilkar nodded, his gaze unwavering. "It is a noble vision, but the scars of war run deep. Your actions have bred fear and distrust among us. If you wish for peace, you must demonstrate it." "How?" Emily asked, desperation creeping into her voice. "How can we prove that we are more than the monsters you believe us to be?" A long silence followed, and then Zilkar spoke, his voice measured. "We have seen the consequences of your undead army. Let us hold a demonstration of your intentions. Bring forth a contingent of your zombies, those under your control. Show us that they can be peaceful, that they do not seek to harm." Emily felt a knot tighten in her stomach. The very thought of showcasing their zombies felt perilous, but she understood the necessity. "We will bring them," she vowed, "but I must ask for your assurance that you will not treat them as weapons." Zilkar exchanged glances with his fellow commanders before nodding. "Agreed. We will observe, but not intervene. This is your chance to prove yourselves." Days passed in anxious preparation as Emily and her team gathered a small group of zombies for the demonstration. Each decision weighed heavily on her, but she was resolved. This was their opportunity to reclaim their humanity, to show that they could control the very creations they had once unleashed upon the universe. On the day of the demonstration, representatives from across the galaxy gathered in the same circular room where the meeting had begun. The air buzzed with anticipation as Emily stepped forward, flanked by her team, and the small contingent of zombies. The room fell silent, all eyes focused on the reanimated figures, their hollow gazes devoid of understanding yet somehow eerily present. With a deep breath, Emily began to speak. These zombies were once individuals, people with lives, families, and dreams. We've reanimated them not to use them as weapons, but to demonstrate that they can coexist peacefully with us. She signaled to the zombies, and they began to move, responding to her commands with surprising grace. They executed simple tasks, picking up objects, following directives, and even interacting with the environment. The sight was haunting, but it was also a glimpse of potential, a hint that perhaps the undead could serve a purpose beyond violence. The representatives watched intently, some frowning, others intrigued. The air was thick with tension, but Emily pressed on. We want to show you that we can control them. They are not our enemies. They are a part of our struggle for survival. If given a chance, they can help us build a better future. As the demonstration continued, Emily noticed a shift among the audience. The initial skepticism began to wane as they witnessed the zombies respond to her commands without aggression. Zilkar leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. Perhaps there is more to your kind than we previously understood, he said, but this is merely the beginning. Trust is not easily given. It must be earned through consistent actions. With a renewed sense of hope, Emily nodded. We understand, and we are willing to work for it. We seek to build bridges, not walls. Together, we can create a universe where our species coexist without fear. The atmosphere in the room began to change. Conversations sparked among the representatives, and the realization that dialogue was possible started to take root. The fear that had once defined their relationship began to crack, revealing a pathway toward understanding. In the days that followed, alliances formed. The envoy worked tirelessly to establish communication channels between Earth and the alien coalition. They shared knowledge, stories, and even technology, forging bonds that transcended the horrors of war. Slowly but surely, walls of mistrust began to crumble, and the galaxy took its first steps toward reconciliation. Back on Earth, the government shifted its focus from war to diplomacy. They embraced the idea of collaboration, recognizing that survival depended not just on strength, but on understanding. The zombie army, once a symbol of humanity's darkest impulses, transformed into a testament to their ability to adapt and grow. Months later, the galaxy held its breath as representatives gathered for a historic summit. The once warring factions stood side by side, united in their desire for peace. Emily found herself at the forefront of the discussions, her heart swelling with pride as she watched her dreams unfold. As the summit reached its conclusion, Zilkar stepped forward, addressing the assembly with a voice that resonated across the chamber. Today, we stand together not as enemies but as allies. Humanity has shown us that change is possible, that even in the face of great darkness, there lies a spark of hope. The assembly erupted in applause, the sound echoing through the hall like a symphony of renewal. Emily felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, overwhelmed by the realization of what they had accomplished. They had not only saved their planet, but had transformed their understanding of life, death, and everything in between. As she looked around at the diverse faces of allies, she understood that this was only the beginning. The path to redemption was long and fraught with challenges, but they had proven that they could forge a new destiny. The line between hero and monster had blurred, but through empathy, dialogue, and a shared commitment to understanding, they had charted a course toward a brighter future. In the vast expanse of the universe where once only fear had reigned, a new narrative emerged, a tale of resilience, redemption, and the undeniable power of unity. As they stepped into this new chapter together, Emily knew that nothing was more terrifying than humanity with the capacity for change, and in that change lay the promise of a future where all species could coexist, hand in hand, crafting a legacy built not on conquest, but on compassion.